Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. I'm Drawing with Mr. S. Happy New Year to everyone out there. And let me just start by saying that this is going to be a very different video than what you're accustomed to seeing on this channel, okay? There's a lot I want to share with this being a new year. I want to let you guys know a little bit about what's going to happen with my posting schedule. I want to let you know a little bit about the pop culture videos I've been posting, the original stories I've been posting, the community redraws, things like that. But there's also one more thing I want to talk to you about, and it's a challenge that me and a few other artists are taking part of. Okay? And I'm pretty sure that's why you're here today. So I figured that's where we're gonna start. So at the end of November, Nerd Comics Inc. approached the group and pretty much asked if we would be down for doing a year-long challenge in which we were supposed to create a fantasy realm, build a world of our own. So crazy enough, we've got Dempsey J Illustrations, we've got Night of Arcane, Kingpin Creations, we've got Nerd Comics Inc. and myself that are crazy enough to take on this challenge. I'll link their videos in the description down below, so go ahead and check them out there, but I'll also have them at the end of our video in the end screen. So the challenge itself is simple. We've got 1 year to create our very own fantasy world. So what I think is going to be really fascinating is that we've got 5 different artists taking 5 different approaches to world building, and I think that makes for some great content. I think there's going to be some different things that Dempsey's going to do that's going to be different than what I'm going to do. It's going to be different than Knight, Nerd, King. It's going to be great to see. It's going to be some amazing art and some great storytelling as well. So I guess without further ado, let's just go ahead, jump in, and see what my approach is to world building. While I talk about how I tackled the challenge of world building, I'm going to let 2 time lapses play here in the background of characters that you'll see in the future of my series. So one of the biggest hurdles in this challenge is the actual world building itself, right? So I've never actually sat down to build a world of my own. So sure, I've got my Esper's Chronicles series where I've created superheroes and supervillains, watched as their stories unfolded and how they intertwined and connected like in my Gods and Champions War Saga. But somehow this feels a little bit different, right? Regardless, I pushed through my apprehensions and I went ahead and powered through this challenge. So when it comes to world building, there's quite a few things to think about. We need to know who the main character is. We need to know some of the side characters or companions that will join their fellowship. We need to know how these characters also help progress the character through the main plot of the story or on their quest. We need to know about the magic systems. We need to know about the types of races, the classes that are going to be present in this world. We need to know about the monsters, the deities, any special weapons, totems, and so much more. Not to mention, we need to know what the world feels like so we can immerse ourselves in it. Meaning that I'll need to make a map. And I'm going to be honest, my map making skills lack skills. You can see it with my first map attempt right over here. It was actually a pretty poor attempt at creating a world, right? For world building challenge number 1, right? Yeah, it wasn't good, right? So I am glad that I made another attempt and I made it a lot better than that first one, if I do say so myself. As the main character journeys throughout these places, those are parts of the map that I will show, I will share, and then I will update as they travel throughout their quest, throughout their journey, okay? So definitely know that this map is going to grow. It's a breathing map. I'll have to make some changes here and there. And I'll also say this, I'm really bad at naming places. So calling them the lands of this or the lands of that, honestly, I think it helps make it easier for me to follow along with where we are on the journey, but it also allows you guys, the audience members, to be able to follow along with me, right? So if I'm in the land of elves, clearly this is the elven territory, right? It should make a little bit of sense, right? The land of serpents, serpent territory, serpent folks live there, things like that. And so as far as the map creation goes, that's a check on my checklist, right? And so I guess the next thing I got to think about is who's my main character. Now, luckily for me, over the summer, I posted a video called Dungeon Tales. It's essentially a story or a series that's very similar to Magi, if you've ever seen that anime. And so I figured I wasn't going to continue it, so I just decided to pluck one of the characters out of there. His name is Ruku, and I placed him in this new series, and I'm calling him my main character. So, main character, check. And so, with my main character problem solved, right? It's time to figure out, well, how does magic actually work in my world? And so, I try to make it very simple. Okay, everyone in my world has the ability to do magic. Really simple, really straightforward. However, some races, and especially those that study magic, they're going to be a lot more attuned. They're going to be able to easily cast spells because of that background or because of their ancestry. And they'll be able to do magic using magical tombs, magical artifacts, magical weapons, things like that. That's how they're going to channel all of that magic ability. However, in my world, if you really want to become a great mage or a great sorceress, you're going to have to go study at a university that helps to train mages, right? Helps train you in the arcane arts. And so I kind of kept it a little Harry Potter there, right? A little Harry Potter thinking, go to Hogwarts, gonna learn some magic, become better at it, right? So really simple thought process in the whole magical scheme of things in my world, in my fantasy world. And so with that out of the way, magic system, check. As far as races, classes, and monsters are concerned, if it's good enough for D&D, then it's good enough for me. So as far as I'm concerned, that's another item or 3 checked off my checklist. So when it comes to special weapons and factions and things of that nature, I'm still in the developmental stages of those. So I'm not quite there or with flushed out ideas just yet. And that's okay. I think some of those are going to honestly come along as my story progresses. As I need things to fit the story, I feel like that's when all of those little intricate little ideas and thoughts will kind of come into play and develop organically as I go. So that's kind of my plan with that. So I'm going to put that on hold for right now. Now, when it comes to deities in my world, I do have a clear vision. I do have a clear idea. I just don't want to share it just yet. I want the story to progress just a little bit further so that when the deities do get revealed or when a single deity reveals themselves to the party, to the crew, to the team, right? Then we're all going to learn right then and there how my deity system works in this world. Now, my ultimate goal, right, is to keep this world that I'm developing believable and grounded, right? I want it to be entertaining for everyone. I want you to be able to start off in the series, watch this adventure unfold, and it makes you want to see or watch or hear the next story. I want each story to be impactful to the main character and his or her companions, right? I want to be able to connect you guys, the audience, into the story, and I want you to be able to find a character that you identify with as the story unfolds and as we get from point A to point Z. That's all my world building talk, and I got that out of the way. So hopefully it wasn't too painful. Hopefully you guys are able to follow along with that. But now this is my favorite part. This is kind of where we normally jump in anyways in one of my videos. We're going to jump into the story, right? And so here we go. Without further ado, let us jump in to the world of Wanana. Ruku, a halfling elf, begins to wake up to the sounds of birds chirping and the commotion of the city outside of his window. As soon as he wakes, he is startled because he has no knowledge of ever living in this world. Yet visions of memories flood his mind to tell him that he has lived in this world his whole life. He wakes himself out of bed and is drawn to the Book of Spells. When he touches the book, memories flood his mind again, this time to let him know that he is a mage in training. Ruku learns that he is a student at Brewhaven University. It's a school for young mages and sorceresses who wish to learn the ways of the arcane arts. A knocking sounds from the other side of the main door, and Ruku moves to open it. At the front steps is a dwarf with a nicely kept brown beard and long hair. The dwarf is wearing a brown tunic with green trimming. He has bands around his deltoids and gauntlets around his wrists. His belt has 2 bags filled with unknown items. His trousers are baggy, tucked into his boots that are secured with wrappings. In his right hand was a branch, or perhaps a wand. Why aren't you dressed? We're gonna be late. Late? Late for what? How could you forget? Today's the field test day. We're trying to use what we learned so we can become level 2 mages. Once Ruku heard the words leaving Orm's lips, he was quickly flooded with memories again. Field tests were the university's way of seeing if mages were ready to move on to higher levels so they can learn stronger spells. Let me change, I'll be right out, Orm! The name Orm escaped Ruku's lips naturally as though he knew the dwarf for a long time. He shook the feeling and ran to his closet. Ruku quickly dressed in a green tunic, black trousers, a pair of brown shoes, 2 wrist gauntlets adorned with runestones, and a brown cloak. Something inside of him urged him to take the Book of Spells, and so he did. As he opened his front door to reveal the world around him, Ruku was quickly met with the shimmering lights of the reflective city buildings. Once he refocused, he noticed Orm walking up the street. Wait up, Orm! I won't be late for a field test day because of you, Ruku. I worked too hard for this. You know how many dwarves would kill for this opportunity like this? Most of my people work in the mines. This is a big deal. I know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to forget. I'm not actually sure what's going on with my mind lately. You might be just as excited as me. Let's hurry up. I know a shortcut up ahead. After a few minutes of taking side streets, Orm and Ruku find themselves in an open field near the forest training grounds. Just up ahead are university students of different races. There were orcs, elves, serpent-folk, and several other species representing all of Wanana here in the land of elves. In the center of the students was Professor Nome. He was an older forest gnome with a bulky build and a backpack that was stuffed with herbs. He carried a wooden staff made from an old Melia tree. It is a tree that is said to be deeply rooted in nature magic. Gather around, students. Today we're going to see if you have what it takes to take down a level 1 creature. These are called Florasia. They look like ordinary flowers, but they can pose a threat to you if you are not careful. Allow me to demonstrate. Professor Nome proceeded to let the caged Florasia loose. He let one of them bite him, and instantly the veins on his right arm became a burning red color. Don't be alarmed, children. If you're ever bit by such a creature, you simply need to cast a purification spell. It will act as an antidote for most low-level poisons. Professor Nome then waved his staff over his hand and recited an incantation. The veins on his arm turned back to their natural state. Who would like to face off against this creature first? Orm challenged the Florasia first. He uses natural earth magic to create a rock storm that pelted the Florasia until it disappeared. Once destroyed, an item was left on the ground. It was a Florasia leaf. Look here, class. When a monster is destroyed as Orm so perfectly demonstrated, they leave behind items that can be used for potion making. Increase power or durability of your weapons or armor. They can even be used to trade and barter with the vendors at local markets throughout the continent of Wanana. Congratulations, Orm. You are now a level 2 mage. Orm received a round of applause from the class. Then, the rest of the class demonstrated their abilities against the Florasia as well. Almost everyone was promoted to level 2. Before Ruku could try his hand at taking on the Florasia, Professor Thanalos came to the field. Professor Thanalos is a serpent-folk mage. He specializes in the art of prophecy and premonition. He always wears a purple and teal robe, the colors of the university, and a black and gold rings. His red scales reflected the morning sun and captured everyone's attention as he neared the class. Greetings, Professor. What brings you here? I was finishing my morning tea when the leaves told me to come here. That is interesting. Hopefully we don't disappoint you, Professor. Our final student today is Ruku. Ruku walked up with his magic tome in hand. It was the Book of Spells he brought with him that contained all the spells a wielder can use. Uniquely, the tome can only show magic up to the user's current magic level. I'm ready, Professor. Nome released the final Florasia, and it charged at Ruku. Ruku turned open to the first page and cast a fire spell called Starlight. Ruku's index finger on his right hand began to glow bright. He aimed his finger at the Florasia, who jumped up into the air and released his magic directly into the petaled face of the creature. The creature disappeared and left behind a Florasia leaf. Ruku smiled and turned around to see a group of chloroplow, low-level carbonated creatures that secrete an acidic liquid from their mouths, heading towards the group of students. His smile quickly faded, and he readied another starlight spell. Professor Nome tried to caution Ruku to stop, but it was too late. He released the spell and it struck a chloroplow that exploded, sending acidic liquid across the field. Most of the students were able to evade the liquid, while others suffered from minor burns. To fend off against chloroplow, you do not simply strike it haphazardly. You must cast a neutralizing spell first, boy. Ruku felt bad that he acted without thinking. Professor Nome cast a neutralizing spell on the chloroplow in the area. He then used his staff to cast a capturing spell using wild grasses in the forest. They squeezed the chloroplow until they were just liquid puddles on the field. The grass then returned to their natural state. My tea leaves don't normally disappoint. Maybe there was nothing to see here, Thanalos thought to himself. Then, from beyond the tree line, rushing in towards the class, was a massive owlbear. The monster charged in and began swinging its massive arms at the students. Several went flying across the field, including Professor Nome. Professor Thanalos, Orm, and Ruku were the only ones standing. Professor, tell me you got this handled? I specialize in prophecies. I don't think telling this owlbear its future will be useful. Then, I got this. Orm charged at the owlbear and began to cast the same spell it used against the Florasia. The rock storm did very little damage and the owlbear went charging at Orm. Suddenly, Ruku's magic tomb began glowing. In it, a new series of fire spells revealed themselves. One of the spells was called Infernal Violet. Ruku channeled the magic into his hand, and a burst of black and purple flames began glowing in his hand. At first, he was terrified. Then he realized that the flame didn't burn him. He aimed it at the owlbear and incinerated it to ash. The flames didn't stop burning until every atom of the monster was burned up. Professor Thanalos, curious by what he witnessed, ran up to Ruku and grabbed his wrist. Upon doing so, Professor Thanalos' magic began to overtake him. Thanalos' eyes began glowing blue as images began flooding his mind. Simultaneously, Ruku's eyes began to sink back into his head. He saw images of 6 individuals. He couldn't quite make out the features of their faces, only that they gave off a very familial presence. When Professor Thanalos came to, he erratically said, "You are one of the 7 heroes of Wanana." Confused by the statement, Ruku looked towards Orm and back at Professor Thanalos. His mind began to flood with more visions, and Ruku blacked out. Alright guys, well there it is. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, please consider giving this video a like. Maybe even comment down what your thoughts are about my world building philosophies or how well this story went for you. Don't forget there are 4 other artists in this video, so I'll leave their videos linked in the description down below, and of course at the end of this video they'll show up on the end screen. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the other things that I want to talk about. So posting schedule. I plan on continuing my bi-weekly posting schedule in the new year. So every other Thursday is how that's going to go. If for some reason I'm able to, be really quick with my work, then I'll post a bonus episode on those off Thursdays for us as well, okay? In addition to that, I also want to be able to live stream a little bit more. And so what I'm thinking about those off week Thursdays, I think that's when I'll try to post some live streams, because I have another challenge on this channel where I am fusing Pokemon with superheroes and creating a new Poke-hero. So the first one I did was Eevee and Superman. The next one up is Bulbasaur and Invincible. So I definitely want to do that. So just be on the lookout for when that next live stream takes place. As far as continuing my pop culture videos, I do plan on continuing those. I do want them to be a little bit more focused with my narrators, so I can kind of drive them a little bit further. So like my Pay that does my Fantasy Beast episodes, my Rachel Pet that does my Dragon episodes, I definitely want to continue those. I definitely plan on continuing my Fakemon series that I just recently started. Ayers Aluru in the next episode is going to choose his starter Pokemon, so stay tuned for that. I also plan on developing my Esper's Chronicles series, my Dimensional Adventurer series as well. However, I think my Esper's series is going to be put on pause for right now, while the Dimensional Adventurers timeline catches up to the Esper's universe. So that might take me another 4 or 5 episodes. I don't know what that looks like in terms of how many months because of my bi-weekly schedule posting. But as soon as that takes place, then they'll kind of piggyback off each other, and I think it'll be a lot of fun for you guys. It'll definitely be fun for me to write and be able to use some other characters and open up my multiverse a little bit further. I do plan on continuing my community redraw episodes. However, I got to change the formatting for those because of this new challenge, because I'll be posting probably once a month with this regular content of my world building. I want to make sure that I can fit in my community redraws during those like off weeks. So instead of getting 2 videos in a month, we'll get at least 3, right? And so I want to fit a community redraw somewhere in between the 2 regular posting schedules. And so I do plan on doing that. February is when I'm going to announce it. It should have been December but with this challenge, and then I had a commission piece that I was working on, I didn't have time to just set it up. And so to make sure that I let that breathe and have time, I'm gonna set it up in February for you guys. So be on the lookout for a video that describes that community redraw for you. And I guess that's it for this episode. So as always, I'm Drawing with Mr. S, and I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget to check out these 4 videos right over here. All right, guys, you guys take care of yourselves. Have a good one. Bye-bye.